for larger message?
Obviously a tremendous victory, as I said, for rural America, and it is a disastrous, humiliating defeat for corrupt and predatory federal agencies. That, in a nutshell, what it is summing up what it comes up to.
Do you think there'll be more protests along the line of the refuge takeover?
Well, I would say this: that depends on the federal government. It depends on what the federal government does. If they begin a retraction of their illegal powers and begin behaving in a lawful manner, these kind of things probably won't happen again. If they continue to base their actions on fraud, misconstruction, and abuse, then I can't rule out the possibility of a number of Americans standing up against them again.
Thank you.
All right, Neil, any final words?
Oh gosh.
What do you want to say? Just get it off your chest.
I don't have anything much on my chest. I would say that for those of us those people out there in this country who have been on the fence wondering whether or not to get involved in these kind of things, I will say that this experience has enriched my life beyond measure.
This experience has enriched your life?
Yes, enriched my life beyond measure. And I feel a satisfaction in my heart and in my soul.
You're working, I get it.
About what I personally have done in this time. I will point out again that it would be completely different if someone was hurt. It would be completely different if someone was injured or if someone was attacked. But as we have seen, I'm coming to that, the only casualty and only death we have had since Bundy Ranch in April of 2014 has been at the hands of the police. The police killed the boy, not us. We never shot anyone.
What will you be doing tonight, sir? I mean, you're out.
Well, since I don't drink anymore, I'm really in a quandary.
So after the verdicts were read, the court said, "Hey, you're free to go, but the marshals might have something to say about it." So I said, "Well, if the marshals have something to say about it, let's see what orders they have. Let's see what papers they have that give them authority to take him into custody again. Otherwise, Mr. Bundy's a free man, and he should be able to."
Marshals eventually moved in, and
yeah, they had surrounded me at that point. And so I just turned to them and I said, "Guys, show me what papers you have." And the next thing I know, they surrounded me, they took a hold of me, and they were talking about how I was resisting arrest when I was simply, they just had a hold of me.
And then they put me your leg.
Yeah, they put me to, they were twisting my legs and put me to the ground, and then they tased me.
How are you physically?
How was I physically?
How are you physically right now?
Well, I'm not a real good-looking guy. I've never been a real.
You know what I mean. No, but in terms of the force that they may have put on you.
I mean, hey, I grew up on a dairy farm, so am I used to some rough treatment? Sure. You know,
do you think they acted appropriately, the marshals?
No.
Lawlessness.
Appropriate? All I was asking for was papers. Man, just show me that you have the authority to take. To show me that you have the authority to take Mr. Bundy in custody.
So they didn't show you that authority. So how is he still in custody?
Lawlessness.
Well, because they don't have any. I mean, who else? Who's going to hold them to account? If
word's lawlessness.
People don't, right?
In terms of what was said, with when the jury gave that not guilty verdict, what was going through your mind?
Oh, very, very pleased, very gratified. You know, it's always. I mean, this jury was dedicated. They listened to the evidence. They listened carefully. The judge commented that throughout the case. They listened to our case, and of course it's very gratifying, you know, to get the kind of verdict that we did get.
Thank you. All right, so what we're going to be doing here?
I think just once. I don't know, but I felt it once, and I'm like, oh, don't tase me. That's what I was saying. I was like, Don't tase me. You don't need to. I'm on the ground.
I heard him take.
Yeah, I could hear them talking about how they were going to tase me. I'm like, oh, jeez, don't do that.
Tonight, major developments in the refuge takeover in eastern Oregon. Shots fired as the feds move in, arresting militia leaders. And Coin 6 giving you an exclusive look of the scene where it all went down.
We have a subject with gunshot wound. Law enforcement is on scene.
One of those militants is dead tonight, as we've confirmed outspoken leader Lavoy Finicum was killed.
All this playing out in a remote area as the group traveled to a meeting that went on as scheduled without the militant leaders. And at 11 o'clock, good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Gianola.
And I'm Jennifer Hoff. Here is what we know tonight. Militia leader Ammon Bundy is under arrest, as well as his brother Ryan. We also know Ryan was shot in the arm. Police also arrested Brian Cavalier, Shauna Cox, and Ryan Payne with the militant group. Another militant, John Ritzheimer, was taken into custody in Arizona. Then in a separate event in Burns, Joseph O'Shaughnessy and Peter Santilli were also arrested. The Harney District Hospital was on lockdown, but we found out late tonight that officers have since left the building. But Highway 395 between Burns and John Day, a 50-mile stretch, is still blocked tonight. And Coin 6 News was the only station on the scene as federal agents and other officers shut down that major highway where this confrontation took place.
I want you to look at this exclusive video now from our photojournalist Dale Burkholz. He was on his way to cover that community meeting in John Day between militia leader Ammon Bundy and people who live there. And Dale described to me what happened.
There were at least 3 or 4 federal cars. They looked like federal agents. They were behind the cars, guns drawn. And it looked like, I couldn't tell, but it looked like whatever it was over. It just happened. And so I pulled over and took some video with my cell phone because I knew they'd be nervous if I got out, obviously. The situation was still developing. And got some video with that. And then as I did that, a car pulled up behind me. He wasn't in any hurry, but then I saw him get out with a military-style rifle, and he came up, knocked on the window, and very abruptly told me to turn around and head south, which I immediately did.
Now, something else very interesting. Dale tells us that area where the confrontation took place has no cell phone service because of the steep canyon. So did federal authorities plan it that way? We don't know.
That's a question we're certainly looking into. We also found out that that community meeting that Dale was going to, it went on as scheduled at the John Day Senior Center, and I spoke to a resident who described what happened at that meeting when news of this gunfight broke.
When did you get word that something had happened?
Not too long into the meeting, we were there, and it was crowded. It was a very packed room. Very crowded room, packed in like sardines. And that's, not long after the people were getting ready to start, word came down, and there was kind of an odd feeling in the room. You could feel the tension and stuff, because, it's coming across different social media and such. So no one's knowing exactly what's going on other than something's happening. It just kind of got tense, depending on which side of the fence you're on with them, happy, sad, or indifferent. It just depends there. But you could definitely feel something change in the air.
Did a law enforcement official come in and confirm anything?
Negative. We did have a law enforcement, our own sheriff shows up, and apparently came there to either welcome them or whatever. He went to the front of the room where they were at. And not long after he stepped out a side door or something, a friend of mine told me that he was speaking with militia as that was all going down. Information was coming in. He went out and, according to my friend that spoke with him, and that he left.
And Mike says that meeting lasted for 2 hours. It went on as scheduled, and several people there spoke. A militia supporter and several of her children also started singing.
The militia member who was killed tonight in that confrontation with federal agents had become a familiar face during the occupation of the refuge. Lavoy Finicum was a spokesperson for the group. He was known for being soft-spoken but determined. He often wore those fur earmuffs along with his cowboy hat with a revolver on his hip. Here is Finicum speaking with Coin 6 just a few weeks ago.
If I'm not worried then, why should I start worrying now?
Nothing to lose?
No, all to gain. All to gain. It's not about losing, it's about gaining. It's about putting the federal government back into the confines of the law.
Once again, Finicum dead tonight. He was from Arizona but had traveled to Oregon to take part in the occupation.
Cliven Bundy is weighing in on Finicum's death. The Nevada rancher is Ammon and Ryan Bundy's father, who has been an outspoken leader in the anti-government movement. He says he heard from Ammon just moments after his arrest, and then here's what he heard from his son.
Ryan Bundy had been shot in the arm. Lavoy Finicum had been murdered, cold-bloodedly murdered. Said that he had had his hands in the air, said he wasn't armed, and they shot him.
Again, that's Cliven Bundy related to Ammon Bundy. Also late tonight, we spoke with leaders of the Pacific Patriot Network who tell us they spoke with the FBI and was told there would be no FBI presence at the wildlife refuge and that anybody else who was left at the refuge was free to go home. Now, this occupation at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge has been going on now for a while, for 3.5 weeks. It started earlier this month in what began as a rally in support for two men, Dwight and Stephen Haymans.
Yeah, the father and son ranchers were sent back to federal prison for starting fires that spread to federal lands, and our Cole Miller now with a closer look at how we got here exactly, Cole.
Well, Jennifer, Jeff, there were pleas for this militia to leave and leave peacefully within the first week this standoff started. I spent time there. I spoke with the community, and Coin 6 has been following this story from the very beginning.
How long will you stay?
As long as it's necessary.
That was night one at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge for Ammon Bundy and his men, protesting the arrest of local ranchers Stephen and Dwight Haymans.
But it's not about me. It's about America. And somehow we got to get the wheels back on this wagon because they're flying off.
The Haymans turned themselves in just days after the refuge takeover started. A few days later, with no signs showing the group was going to leave, Bundy met with Harney County Sheriff David Ward after schools were closed for safety concerns.
It's time to get the schools open, let your community get back to living. We do not pose a threat.
And that's what I'm asking for.
But that can be done without us leaving.
Despite that plea from the sheriff and those living nearby, Bundy declined an escort out of the state. Then, 1 week into the standoff...
Back up. Back up. You guys won't be allowed to come anywhere closer.
More men arrived, heavily armed, pushing journalists away.
And this is how we will do things when we're in town here.
Bundy would later kick those men out of the refuge. They later went to the Burns airport, meeting face-to-face with the FBI and a list of demands.
You understand it from our perspective, too. You can't walk up and tell us how we're going to do this.
No.
You understand?
No.
I agree, it has to be a mutual thing.
In the second week, community members came together at the high school with mixed opinions.
I personally want to say thank you to the Bundys for having the courage to do what they've done. I too agree that it's time for them to go home.
That night, Sheriff Ward said members of the militia had been harassing locals. And just last week, Bundy himself met with the FBI and was driving around town, confident in what he had been doing. Tonight, he is in FBI custody.
The majority of the people are in support of us.
And Bundy and the others who were arrested, they all face felony conspiracy charges through use of force, intimidation, and threats. This investigation, however, certainly is not over.
The Bundy brothers have been found not guilty. The activist ranchers and 5 others who took over the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon were acquitted on all charges by a federal jury on Thursday. One of the 7 defendants proclaimed the acquittal was a big win for rural America. The federal jury found the Bundy brothers, Ammon Bundy and Ryan Bundy, along with 5 other anti-BLM Bureau of Land Management activists, not guilty on the multiple felony conspiracy and firearms charges levied against them, the Seattle Times reports. This is off the charts unbelievable, Matthew Schindler, attorney for defendant Kenneth Bach, said, "I had been telling my client you can count on being convicted. You don't walk into a federal court and win a case like this. It just doesn't happen." The federal jury found Ammon Bundy, Shauna Cox, David Lee Fry, Jeff Wayne Banta, Kenneth Bach, and Neil Wampler not guilty on all counts, The Washington Post notes. The same jury found Ryan Bundy not guilty on conspiracy and possession of firearms charges, but they were unable to reach a verdict on a theft charge also levied against the Bundy brother. While we had hoped for a different outcome, we respect the verdict of the jury and thank them for their dedicated service during the long and difficult trial, Billy Williams, the Oregon District United States Attorney, stated in a media release. The Malheur Wildlife Refuge standoff lasted 41 days over the course of last winter and ended on February 11, 2016. The trial had continued for 5 weeks before the case was handed over to the federal jury for deliberation. One juror was removed and replaced due to claims of bias. Share 9 tweet: "The members of the federal jury rejected the conspiracy to disable federal workers from doing their jobs charges. Although multiple guns and ammo were seized after the standoff ended, the jurors declined to levy a guilty verdict on related charges, because all of the firearms were legally owned and had not been used to commit a crime." Marcus Mumford, the attorney for Ammon Bundy, argued for his client to be released immediately. United States District Court Judge Anna Brown denied the request. The judge said the Bundy brothers must first be escorted back to Nevada with federal marshals to stand trial for the BLM standoff at their father, Cliven Bundy's ranch. "Mr. Mumford, you really need to not yell at me now or ever again," Judge Brown said. Ammon Bundy's attorney continued to protest the order by the federal judge. U.S. Marshals reportedly tackled the lawyer and used a stun gun on him, and then cleared the courtroom. Share 9 tweet: "Don't tase me. That's what I was saying. You don't need to, I'm on the ground," Mumford said to reporters after he was released from law enforcement custody. Supporters of the Bundy brothers and the 5 other defendants on trial for protesting the ownership and control of public lands by the BLM celebrated outside the courthouse after the verdict was read. The group also uttered a prayer for Lavoy Finicum, the rancher killed by federal agents when the Malheur occupiers left the refuge to attend a public meeting. Share 9 tweet: "During the closing arguments in the case, which lasted for 2 days, the prosecutors maintained the Bundy brothers and their cohorts were not on trial for their beliefs. Protesters staunchly maintained the anti-BLM activists were being treated unfairly by a federal government that allowed similar acts of civil disobedience to occur without non-violent leaders being arrested." The Bundy supporters have frequently pointed out that the Black Lives Matter and Occupy activists were never charged with federal crimes for taking over public spaces and preventing government employees from doing their jobs. Ammon Bundy and Ryan Bundy are slated to stand trial in Nevada early next year. A total of 26 Malheur National Wildlife Refuge occupiers were arrested on conspiracy charges. Charges were dropped against 1 of the occupiers and 11 pleaded guilty. 7 of the defendants chose not to be tried at this time with the Bundy brothers and other group leaders. The trial for the remaining anti-BLM activists is scheduled to begin on Valentine's Day. Featured image by Rick Bomer/AP Images. Now watch this. 14th century Italian church collapse caught on camera. Now read this. New Donald Trump video shows him taking revenge on former Miss Universe Jennifer Hawkins by humiliating her sexually on stage. Read more at http://www.inquisitor.com/3654515/bundy-brothers-not-guilty-verdict-7-defendants-ion-malheur-wildlife-refuge-7-BLM-set-free/pound-sign BLGSOTBK2KEL2YJG.99